It is my real pleasure, though, to be here with Arianna today. We're going to be talking about women entrepreneurs with one of the foremost women entrepreneurs in this country, for sure. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Kim.
So you started HuffPo back in 2005. And since then, the landscape for women entrepreneurs has just taken off. We know that women are starting 1,800 businesses a day in this country. Amazing, right? $12 trillion in revenue, close to the GDP of Germany. So tell us a little bit about what you've seen over the last 10, 15 years since you started HuffPo, and then we'll get into Thrive.
So first of all, it's great to be here. What an amazing group and what an amazing moment in our culture that this group is convening here and that there are so many men present. I love it. I also want to thank Sherry so much for her leadership, a real pioneer in understanding the connection between well-being and performance, and taking the issues of employee well-being out of just HR and making them central to business success and business metrics, which is the only way we are going to see a huge shift in how employees are treated. HR can still lead, but they need to make all these initiatives part of what the company values. And so for me, what I look around since my own entrepreneurial journey began in 2005 is both a huge shift and definitely not moving fast enough when you have only about 3% of venture funding going to women. And also when you have at the leadership level either stagnation or regression. And I think we need to actually look very carefully and boldly at why. I think we need new answers to the same old question, why are so many women leaving the workplace? And why, when they return, they're only going part-time, and then it gives the excuse to people who don't want to be part of the solution to say, well, it's a pipeline problem, right? So I think that my generation needs to acknowledge that we made a Faustian bargain. The Faustian bargain was to claim that we can do an amazing job at work, having children and not missing a beat.
Right. So true.
And it's just not true. And a lot of women are paying an incredible price. And we have a special program that we call the Parenthood Journey, and it's for women and for men. And what we see is that the parenthood journey now, first of all, starts with preconception, because more and more women in their 30s have to have IVF to conceive, which is a connection to the growing stress at work. And then you take the journey all the way to the 4th and 5th trimesters. The 4th trimester is also incredibly important for women, whether they're entrepreneurs or working in traditional businesses, because look at the announcement last week of a new postpartum depression drug. We should not be having postpartum depression drugs. 99% of postpartum depression is sleep deprivation. What we need is support systems. What we need is our workplaces supporting us with information, with knowledge that goes beyond benefits. In our experience, benefits are incredibly important. How long is your maternity leave? Are you including paternity leave? But they are not enough. Because if you have a great maternity leave and you don't have a place where you can go pump milk and put it in a fridge, that's not the same fridge where people put their sandwiches. I mean, I know it sounds trivial, but it's not trivial. If you're like just coming back from work, already dealing with the emotions of leaving your child behind, and then you have to go to the bathroom to pump, when there are about 5 or 6 ping pong tables. So it's not like lack of space. I'm just giving you one example of how we need to look at the whole experience of women if we are going to change the realities and the outcomes and the stats.
Amazing. And I have so many things that I want to unpack from what you just said. I'm going to take us all the way back to the entrepreneurship point about the 3% of venture capital we heard earlier today. I think 2 or 3% of venture capital funding, 4% of bank loans, and my partner Sharon Bowen made the great point that women hold 72 trillion in wealth. Our money's in the bank, but yet we can't borrow it back, right? So what's going on here that women can't get access to the funding? What do you think is happening that's making it hard for us?
Well, if you talk to VCs, they will tell you it's the pipeline problem, right? And that's why I'm saying we need to unpack this pipeline problem.
Totally agree.
And because if we don't, they're going to be giving the same answer. The other thing is, and we are just beginning to realize that fact, that the idea that the only way to create an amazing startup and build a company is to be always on, 24/7, and never stop, is absolutely false. Like, we claim to be data-driven, and we still believe something which is fundamentally false. And because women on the whole are still the primary caregivers, no matter what we say, yes, there are a few men who are stay-at-home dads. But if you look at the numbers, they are not really what drives the economy. So given all that, anytime we really buy into the myth that you have to be 24/7 on to build a successful company, we are penalizing women. Because women remain the primary caregivers, not just of, and I'm not suggesting it should stay that way. I'm just saying that's where we are now, and we need to acknowledge that reality. Whether they're the primary caregivers of children or elderly parents or whatever it is they're dealing with. So I think we need to change that reality, because it also is not accurate.
Right.
Over 3/4 of startups, most of them founded by men, fail. So maybe there is a correlation between failure and being on 24/7.
Well, and we also know that women are actually doing really well in terms of returns,
Yes,
right? So the data
absolutely.
bears it out. So
And also, just one more thing about that I'm very passionate about right now is because I love teachable moments in culture. Obviously, Uber was a teachable moment, and I was the only woman on the board, so I got very involved in that cultural teachable moment. Now we have another teachable moment, which is Elon Musk. I wrote an open letter to Elon, saying, Elon, you understand energy in terms of what drives cars. You don't understand human energy. Human energy has diminishing returns. If you're up all night tweeting that you have found the funding to take a Tesla private, and it's not true, and the SEC launches an investigation that requires you stepping down as chairman and paying $20 million, that's not good for your company. It's at minimum a distraction. And he tweeted back at me saying that what I'm suggesting, like that he takes some time to recharge. I'm not talking about time like go to Bermuda for a vacation. I'm talking about getting a good night's sleep and having like a minute to breathe during the day. He said that's not an option because he's buying into that primarily male, I have to say, culture founder myth that is completely disproven by all the data. And yet people continue to buy into it.
I have to talk about Thrive. I mean, this is all about Thrive, why you started Thrive. I mean, all the myths that you're dispelling and what you've done for all of us. And I want to thank you for my good night's sleep last night. So why did you start Thrive, and what are you doing with Thrive?
So I started Thrive in 2016 because, as you can hear from my voice, I'm so passionate about this mission of ending this delusion. Because I believe if we don't end this delusion, we're not going to change outcomes. And this delusion means ending the stress and burnout epidemic. I don't know if you saw the Sanjay Gupta amazing documentary, One Nation Under Stress, on Monday night. It's horrifying to see what's happening. The impact it's having on adults, the deaths of despair, the chronic diseases skyrocketing, 75% of diseases, 90% if you count mental health, being stress-related and preventable. So we need to actually wake up and do something about it. And what we need to do is, first of all, recognize that when we actually take the time to recharge, we are more effective, we are more productive. That's why when Sherry introduced the work we're doing with Bank of America, she mentioned well-being and performance together. If we continue talking about well-being in terms of soft and warm and fuzzy benefits, it's never going to spread. We need to link it to business metrics. We need to look at athletes. Look at athletes. You know, Tom Brady is still winning a Super Bowl. He's just as disciplined about his sleep and recovery as he is about his training. So that's a great model to emulate. And for me, I also had the personal experience of collapsing in 2007, 2 years into building the Huffington Post, divorced mother of 2 teenage daughters, buying into the myth myself that in order for the Huffington Post to succeed and for me to be a good mother, I had to sacrifice myself. And the result was a broken cheekbone and the beginning of a journey that got me to want to devote the rest of my life to changing our culture and to unlocking that incredible potential that human beings, including women, of course, have that we have not unlocked because of that delusion.
So this morning we talked a bit about making the business case for diversity and for gender equality, and you're making the business case for something maybe bigger for all of us. And so how are you finding companies are responding to this? Are you finding that you're able to change the culture with the business case?
Yes, it's kind of amazing. We're at this incredible moment when the conversation around culture has shifted from being like a talking point and something in commencement addresses. You know, culture, eat strategy for breakfast, you know. How many times haven't you heard that? While people are paying no attention to culture beyond like talk and gestures. So, but we're now moving to the point where culture is seen as central to a business success. We are, for example, about to announce a product in partnership with SAP that is going to be a product that we take to boards to show that if you don't really address your human capital, this is a risk that boards need to be conscious of. The way boards are conscious of succession, strategy, etc., they need to bring what's happening to the human capital at the board level, at the senior executive level, because it's a predictive dashboard. We can predict from the dashboard of what's going on with the human capital, what's going to happen to the business down the line. And when I say down the line, I mean very closely down the line. And it's also connected to all the other metrics. You know, cost of healthcare, skyrocketing, especially mental health and fertility and maternity. These are the two, other than skeletal, muscular skeletal, these are the two biggest cost centers for companies.
So interesting.
So addressing this, we just announced a partnership with Stanford to address mental health in companies. And what is key here, we have found, is that you can't just address it at the level of destigmatizing. That's terribly important, opening up the conversation. But you also need to go upstream and look at what are the factors that, if left unaddressed, will become depression and anxiety. And here women are particularly vulnerable because women are more prone to a misplaced perfectionism about themselves. I mean, we can all identify, right? I was victim of that, you know, for so many years. I call it the obnoxious roommate living in my head that constantly, like, doubted me, second-guessed me. Like, I literally would leave a conversation like that with Kim, and then I would spend 48 hours judging myself. So this would have been a lovely 20-minute conversation, but I would be drained because of the judgment. So I didn't mention that. When Kim asked that, I didn't actually answer it right. Has anybody done that here? So we need to stop that so that we can be fully present, we can do what we're doing, and we can move on without this energy depletion. So women, we have to deal with all the institutional barriers, but we also have to deal with our own mental and emotional barriers. And I have two 20-something daughters, so I see that every day. I see their self-doubts rearing their ugly head, even though I try to raise them as confident women. And I feel we need to address it at a younger and younger age. And now we have the additional problem of social media, comparisons, 70% increase in suicides among young women in the last decade. It's really something which, again, women are particularly vulnerable to. And I think those of us who are in the arena need to kind of rally together and help not just women in the workforce, but women coming behind who need the support now.
I couldn't agree more. We started an organization, well, a program called Fast Forward Girls. And these girls, if you ever feel depressed, down, worried about the future, you just spend some time with these girls and you realize it's incredible what they can do. But you got to give them the positive qualities, the positive content to focus on, and that changes everything. I just want to take you back to a couple of these myths, because I think these myths are really interesting that you've identified. I mean, this pipeline myth is one that's near and dear to our heart. And actually, we did something last year with P&G, and maybe some of you know about it, this idea that there's not enough women in the workforce, there's not enough women for top jobs. We know that's a myth. But again, back to this entrepreneurship question, why is it then that women are not getting funded? What is the myth that's holding us back there? I mean, we know women are have better performing companies. You just said that, 75% of companies fail, but women seem to do great. So why can't they get that capital?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the excuses, but also with the fact that there is this hyper-growth myth that we mentioned earlier, that you want these men who are always hustling, who never stop. Remember, there was the myth that funders would walk through Silicon Valley, and if they saw the lights on all night, they would fund that company. It's like a complete delusion. It's also like now, given all the data we have, these are the companies that should not be funding. In fact, it was Jack Ma gave me the idea to launch Thrive, ironically, and he led my Series A because he, being a bit of a pioneer funder, recognized that these are going to be huge issues that companies and countries will have to address. And there is a wide space. There's still a lot. Anybody who's here a founder, this is a great space to come in, talk to me. There is because it's like more and more people need to address these issues now. Companies need to address them, countries need to address them, whether it's at the level of addiction to technology, at the level of healthcare. But also, I'm glad you mentioned P&G. I don't know if Caroline is here, who is it's a great celebration.
We'll be here in a few minutes.
Yes, it's a great celebration because she's going to become very soon the head of sales at P&G, which is another great position. I was in Cincinnati speaking to the sales force at P&G on last Thursday. Because what is interesting is that consumer product companies now are at the forefront also potentially of behavior change.
Right.
We are talking about here, well, everything we're talking about here is behavior change. Behavior change has traditionally failed because we've been treating human beings like dogs and mice and in Skinner boxes. And we're much more complicated. We're emotional beings. So at the heart of the behavior change at Thrive is really this product, this tech product, this platform that treats human beings holistically, mind and heart and soul. So normally behavior change is just nudges, right? You give you a nudge, you do your 1,000 steps and then your 2,000 steps, and then with the exception of a small minority that will keep doing that and then running marathons and triathlons, the rest of the people are going to put their Fitbit away and stop exercising. So we need to kind of make behavior change sustainable. Compliance of good behavior is 10%, whether it's exercise, nutrition, mental health issues. The numbers at P&G are 75 to 90% compliance of products. So we're working with them to bring in what we call habit stacking. The fastest way to change a habit, and that applies to women losing our obnoxious roommate thoughts, to VCs learning that it's not a pipeline problem, I'm sorry, is to just put a positive new behavior on top of an existing behavior. Let me give you just one example. You brush your teeth twice a day. 75% compliance of people brushing their teeth twice a day. We are adding a micro step, we call them. While you're brushing your teeth, remember 3 things you're grateful for, morning and night. It begins to change your neural pathways. Because right now, when we are not actively engaged mentally, our brain goes to things we worry about or things we judge ourselves about, basically negative things. And that had an evolutionary purpose. Like when we were running away from a tiger or a lion, we had to focus on the tiger and the lion, not on the sunset. But now, there aren't a lot of tigers and lions around, but we're still living in this fight or flight mode. So basically, I think for us to change the realities, we need to zoom out. We need to look at the whole behavior change that is needed among women, among allies, among VCs, because if we stay within the realm of, is it a pipeline problem, or can we go from 3% to 4%, we're missing the big opportunity that we have right now.
Yes, I couldn't agree more, and I have to say that, you know, your work is really, I think, changing mindsets today, and I think we've talked about this today as well. It's all about changing mindsets.
Yes.
And just the example you just gave of brushing your teeth, I think, is a genius one. It's this habit stacking, as you called it. So we're going to run out of time, and I know everyone wants to spend the day with Arianna, as I do, and maybe some more than just the day. Is there one sort of tip you would leave with everybody with? We actually created something called Seneca Connect, which gives tips and tactics from women leaders. So yes. I know a lot of people are waiting to hear from tips and tactics from you, and I'm sure many people in this room will brush their teeth differently tonight. Is there anything else you would leave you know, some of the women entrepreneurs who are tuning in around the world to hear you speak? Is there something you would tell them?
Can I say 2 things?
Please.
So the first thing is that you here have a huge opportunity to impact others. We have found on our Thrive Global media platform, where we have 30 million users now across all the different media we use, that of all the things we do, what moves the needle more than anything is new role models. It's like people in the arena, like everybody in this room, writing about what you do. It can be tiny, but show people that they can give themselves permission to do something good for themselves, and that doesn't mean they're going to be left behind. So, you know, we had Jeff Bezos, right? His headline was, "Why am I sleeping 8 hours a night is good for Amazon shareholders," connecting sleep and decision making. We had Philip Schindler, the chief business officer at Google, write about why he doesn't use his phone in front of his children. We had Deborah Majores, the chief legal officer at P&G, wrote this amazing piece, which you have to see it, you have to go look at it, or I'll send you the link, of how when they had the proxy battle with Nelson Peltz, she said everybody was working around the clock. She said, I was going on 3-4 planes a day. I knew that if I went to my default position, I would probably put on like 15 pounds, because I would get on the plane, I would feel sorry for myself that I've been working so hard, I would go for the M&Ms, or the second glass of wine, or whatever. I would have conference calls through the night. So she said, I decided to do the opposite. I decided to get my 7-hour sleep every night. I had my office schedule, my workouts as though they were meetings with the CEO. I would pack food with me, you know, to make sure I ate healthy. To cut a long story short, the woman lost 10 pounds. And I sent her piece to Nelson Peltz, and he sent her a very funny email, you know, said, you should thank me for this health regime. But my point is that we women need to realize that even when we are building a company, and we have our VC meetings, and we have our board meetings, and we have our children's homecoming, whatever, or chocolate chip cookie baking exercise, that we still need to take care of ourselves. And my micro step that we have over 700 micro steps for taking care of ourselves and being more productive. I want to leave you with my absolute favorite micro step, but I promise you, if you start doing it, you will see the impact. And this is, I can guess, and I'm sure I'm right, that there's nobody here who finishes your day and can say, I've done everything I could have done today. You could stay up all night and the night after. So you need to pick a time of the night, whatever it is, the evening, that you declare the end of your working day. Because human beings learn through ritual, the ritual is you take your phone, you turn it off, and you gently escort it out of your bedroom. Break up with your phone for the night at least. A little micro step. If you can't do it every night, start with one night and you'll see the difference.
Thank you so much for being here. This has been wonderful to have you.